Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Never Mind the Buy Box. My name is Natalie Cromie, and I am the content director here at the Secret Wealth Project. And this evening, I am joined by Mr. FBA himself, Mr. Luke Dugan. Hi, Luke. How are you?
I'm good. Okay. Every time you say that, I am the content director. I just like crack up in my head. It's so like not how I ever see you. So it's just like quite funny to like. See
I know. Well, the reason I do it is obviously because, like, if somebody has just like stumbled across this video,
I get it. If new people
for the first time, they might be like, "Oh, who's this weirdo talking all the time?" But we've already been joined by a few YouTubers. So Jamie's joined us. Evening, Jamie. Hi, Andy. Hi, Simon. I was just about to say, if someone can give us just let us know that you can see and hear us okay, and please do give us some likes and loves. And drop a comment in saying this evening just so we can push out that notification and get as many people as possible tuning in. Oh, I actually got a notification tonight saying that the YouTube has gone live, which I never get that. So that's really weird.
Do you subscribe to the Never Mind the Buy Box YouTube channel?
Wow, I didn't think I have, but obviously
you must have the bell. Like, maybe you don't have the bell because I know with the bell, you sometimes that's like notify when new content releases, but maybe with a live, it does it the same. I don't know.
Maybe. Idgius has joined us. Good evening. The soon-to-be famous Emma Hamilton is in the building. Hi, Emma. Hope you're well. Ramel has joined us. Nike has joined us as well. So, yeah, don't be shy, guys. Say hello. We do this every Tuesday for anyone. If this is your first time in watching, 7:00 every Tuesday. It's generally myself or Matt, but mainly myself. Luke joins us on a regular basis, but we have different people stopping in to say.
Well, you have been squeezing me out in the last year, I've noticed.
Sorry,
that's great. It doesn't matter. I've got plenty of other things that are going on. So,
have I not been?
No, I know that. As in, I was busy last night. Tomorrow, I'm like, there's another webinar thing for that new thing I'm doing. So, as in, I'm doing things like this week. I'm doing things Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening, as in webinar based or watching or something. So sometimes it is nice to have a couple of gaps free.
And then the 1 week I ask you to do Never Mind the Buy Box, you're really busy the rest of the week as well.
Well, yeah, and luckily it falls quite nicely because none of them are conflicting. So this week's fine, but other times it could be conflicting. So it is nice to have options sometimes,
There we go. Mr. FBA in demand, Luke Dugan, for sure. Russell's joined us. Garav joined us. Carl, evening. Everyone, we've got loads on tonight. Hi, Luke. Luke says, sitting in the field with a dog, watching with a beer. There we go. Must have beer viewing. Simon's joined us. Johnny's joined us. Do you know what? I feel tonight the title might be a bit clickbaity tonight.
I read it and I was like, it sounds like those things that pop up on YouTube with those ads.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy, and I'm like I looked at it. I was
it is true. We haven't done it for fake news. So this is something that I know, and we'll come on and talk about this in a moment, guys. Luke's big ambitious plans for Q4. But what's actually really funny is I was talking to Thomas Parkinson, not last week, maybe the week before. I can't remember when it was. And I know that, he set a very ambitious target for Q4 as well. And I said,
I haven't heard this. What's he set?
Well, I'm not going to say because, just I don't want to do a spoiler alert or anything like that. But we were very casually talking about, plans for Q4 and things like that. So, yeah, I'm not going to spoil that. Because I'm sure Thomas will be talking about that, via his own videos and everything. Or suddenly I was nearly going to blurt it out. And then I thought, no, I better not, just in case. So you'd have to watch and tune in for Thomas for that one. But I think this year in particular I do know a lot of sellers are setting some really big targets for this Q4, ourselves included, obviously. And do you think it's because people are setting because you think that this Q4 is like a little bit of a once in a lifetime Q4, or because of everything that's happened over the last 12 months?
Ultimately, I still think last year will be almost impossible to beat for ages. Because the potential was far greater than what I did. It was 5 times that if you just put a bit of, you know, Biden, obviously it's like hard to have predicted it as such. But this year, I think Q4 is always Q4, and it always feels pretty like, even though last year didn't feel anything massively different to any other Q4, I still feel that it might be definitely just in terms of like, maybe not the buying side of things as such, but like the logistics and various things like that, which are like, well, there wasn't any of that last year. Like last year was basically just a smooth ride the whole year. The only thing that obviously happened was the 200 limit. The restock limits weren't there yet, were they? No, it wasn't.
No. So we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? We were talking.
It was only the 200 limit that they had, and that was pretty much the only thing that actually came in. That was like, oh, like the rest of the year was just like crack on and make lots of money kind of thing. That's how it felt. Like it was very there was hardly any limitations to the potential of last year, and that one thing was quite annoying for me actually. And I don't have that this year. We don't have that unless it magically just pops in like next week or something. But that then means that the potential is like, do you know what? Now that I'm talking, I'm like, now the potential. I was about to say, now the potential's unlocked. It's, you know, it could be. I'm like, well, I still think I have to see. Like, I still think last year and last Q4 was potentially still going to be one of the best. But again, we haven't had the Q4 this year, so I just cut it there because otherwise I just end up
literally.
Story.
So we do Never Mind the Buy Box next week. So we've got one more week of Never Mind the Buy Box, and then we're in Q4. That's how crazy it is. That's how close it is. You know, obviously we talk about, you know, when Q4 starts and when it doesn't start. We've talked about that quite a bit, so I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. But I'm really interested to see what you guys think, because I want to know what people are thinking about this upcoming Q4. We always talk about hashtag the best Q4 ever, and genuinely, when we say it, we genuinely mean it, because based on all the evidence and everything that we've got, is you know, everything points to it being the best Q4 ever. There's no doubt about it, and that's without taking into into account that, you know, could we have some firebreaker lockdowns, you know, all these additional things, you know, that's excluding that. So anything like that potentially could bring, you know, sales on top. But I want to know from you guys whether or not you think that this Q4, one, will be better than last year, and two, with this Q4, because we're coming out the back end of pandemic, is it going to be a sort of, you know, a once in a lifetime, and then next Q4 we might return back to normal? Because we know from the data that Amazon is busier now than it's ever been, including during the height of the pandemic. So I'll just give you that extra as well.
I think it's because I also like to say, I also like to use historical stuff, and I also like to sort of follow the breadcrumbs and build up a picture rather than I'm kind of I'm kind of going off slightly either older information or maybe sort of current information, and so until it kind of materializes as I'm walking the path, or as each day goes, I can adapt fast enough. That's not a problem, but I don't know until it starts to reveal itself. That's the way that I kind of see it. So it doesn't mean that I don't think it could be. I just think I don't have an opinion, almost, I guess it is, because I need to see. It needs to reveal itself slowly till I can build that picture better, and then make adjustments or changes or whatever I need to do as that picture becomes revealed, and then act on it. And
Absolutely. And that's one thing, you know, that I would say that you're particularly good at, Luke, is you're pretty fast moving in terms of when something happens, you're quick to react to something. And I think in this game, especially the way that Amazon, you know, move the goalposts and change things around and put restrictions in and take restrictions away, that being really quick to react really does put you ahead, you know, in terms of other people, because obviously the longer you do the same thing over and over again, and the more Amazon, you know, move the goalposts and the more that they change, I think the further you get left behind.
Yeah, I think it's the reason I think that I'm quite quick to react, or whatever you were just saying, is that I kind of just, like, I guess that in theory that means there's more risk on my part but there's more reward. But it doesn't mean that's the right decision to be doing. Because like, you know, for example, I can move fast. So if I notice things, I could be like, right, I'm going to drop 10 grand on like four or five items, 800 units, just go bang, 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 15 minutes. But a lot of people might not want to do that, or they might not be experienced enough to feel comfortable doing that. Doesn't mean that's the wrong decision. It's just like, but then again, that if there's a downside is I just spent 10 grand on like 4 random aces or whatever in like 10 minutes. And it's like, that is the risk. That's the risk side. You just spent the 10 grand and it could be worthless or something, you know? So it's like anyone has to find the right balance. And I just kind of, with a mixture of experience, and I guess I am a bit of a risk taker, I used to be, I guess it's hard to like quantify.
Were you always a risk taker, or did Amazon make you a risk taker?
No, I used to always think, well, I don't know. I always used to think, I don't want to be, I kind of don't want to be a nobody, or I don't want to be a Mr. Average. And so I'm either going to not go big or go home, because I'm not doing anything stupid, like taking out like £1 million loan and like, you know, going crazy like that. But obviously I'm like, you know, if I feel like I have belief in myself as you know, I always, for some reason, I've always thought I was like a little bit better at people, generally at like noticing things. Like, it's hard to explain. You can't really explain that. Just like, you know, some people just have like some people feel like some people go, oh, look, I'm sensitive and I know there's ghosts around, like, you know, paranormal people. And they might not be. But then for me, I feel like I can see things a lot. I can see things different.
Really good.
Yeah, my perception is different than like just a standard person. And most people are like, but how do you see it like that? And I'm like, I don't know, I just do. And it doesn't always work, of course, because it's not, you know, sort of good guarantees. But I feel like if I just trust that, more often than not, it would work. And so I do. And so there's a little bit of that which you can't learn or anything. And I've done that through my life. I've always trusted in it. So yeah, there are times it hasn't worked, because that's just what happens, probability. But more often than not, the longer I live, the more that percentage stays consistent, and I use that as well, whatever that is.
I think that's one of the most profound things I've ever heard you say, Luke. Absolutely. And do you know what? Yeah, really, what I picked out of that is the fact that you believe in yourself and you trust your instincts. So actually, it's not really a risk when you look at it from that point of view, is it?
Because ultimately as well, I always thought this, like the best way to describe this is like if you're in a relationship. So it's like if you're in a relationship and you're like, oh, I'm going to trust my head, yeah, and because everyone goes, trust your head, don't go with your heart, because like it's lying to you, it's feeling love, but it's clouding your judgment, or you know, that kind of stuff. And it's like, think logically, and like but the great thing about that is if it works, it works. But then if it doesn't work, then you're even more demoralized, because I should have gone with my heart. But if you go with your heart and it doesn't work, then you're like, well, I went with my heart. And I always feel that is less of a downside if you go with your heart and it doesn't work. If you go with your brain, you'd be like, oh, okay, and then you'd be like, oh, but I knew it. If I just gone with, and so I kind of like see it a little bit like that as well. That's why I trust in myself, and that's why I kind of go with that me. So sometimes I make slightly different decisions than what like the logical one might be. It might be a variant, or it could be extreme, maybe, but I add that into the mix as well, making decisions anyway. There we go.
So a mix of, we've got a mix of Luke, the Amazon guru, and the love guru tonight, giving us advice, you know, from 2 points of view. Right, let's go back to the comments. So Sean said Q4 is going to be amazing. Absolutely. Just a bit of conversation going on there between about units and whatnot. Paul's joined us. Hi, Paul. Let's just have a quick look. Philip's joined us. Evening, Philip. Emma said, Emma said, I'm reading the wrong thing. Emma said, Amazon is going to keep growing until a competitor can offer similar or a better offering, e.g., for example, delivery in 2 hours. Absolutely. Amazon is going to keep going, and there are going to be platforms that, you know, that do challenge it. Yes, eBay is going to be catching up, or eBay's trying to make these big strides to kind of catch Amazon up. And I've often talked about it. I personally think Amazon is too far ahead at this stage, and knowing all the stuff that they've got and how the pandemic has fueled their growth over the last 18 months, I think I know you can never say never, but I am going to say it. I think they're pretty much uncatchable at this stage.
I guess the only way you can do it is if they literally force them to break up. Like they force Amazon to basically split the business.
Which is something that is very...
that's why I mentioned it, because it was like legislation, whatever it was.
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, there's a big thing going on in America at the moment. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't know. This could go on for years. If if Congress does eventually force Amazon to break up, I'm sure there's going to be appeals. There's going to be this, there's going to be that. So it's not really going to be something that's going to happen overnight or anything like that. But Luke's absolutely right. The wheels are in motion because obviously Amazon has grown to just such a big monster. And the main crux of the reason why Congress is going through this, and, as sellers, we understand this, is that Congress is basically saying that, in a nutshell, that it's not fair that Amazon themselves are competing against their third-party sellers, that you can't have your cake and eat it, Amazon. You can't sell on the same platform as the people that you are making money out of. It's anti-competitive, essentially. So that's what's going through at the moment. How long that's going to take, how long it's going to go on for, who knows? Amazon have talked quite a lot about it in the US. They've set up petitions and things like that. But until, we know what's going to happen with that, don't let anybody fuel you into it's going to be the end of Amazon or this. There's going to be ways around it. There's going to be challenges or whatever. But I'm a firm believer, and we can only really, focus on what we can do now. So there's no point worrying about it. We have to wait until it happens. If it ever happens, you might get a change of government in America, and they might change it completely or whatever. So that's what we'll say. Never say never, and wait until it happens. Paulina's joined us. Evening. Lots of you tonight. Loads of YouTube viewers tonight. So that's because the YouTube thing is sending out notification, I think. That's what I see anyway. Tammy said, I think it's a good thing. Unfair practice as they compete at very low prices. Yeah, I think Amazon will have to go through some big change.
Or they have to... Maybe there's a way of them basically focusing on their own brand, which is their own brand, which is kind of what they're doing, have been doing, like the Fire stuff and the Amazon Basics and like all that. There's loads of stuff that they've done. Like, or it might not look like it's Amazon, but it is. Maybe they can move their own stuff somewhere else, because people would more likely still go to that new website because it's Amazon. Mm-hmm. But then you can keep the original here. But if you move third-party sellers off, it's less likely that people would go to that, because then it wouldn't be Amazon. Do you kind of get?
Yeah, I absolutely get what you're saying. I don't think it'll come down to a website split, because that's one of the two options.
Maybe it would just be like log in, and then it would be like Amazon or third part. Or it wouldn't be called that, but it would be like partnered services or something.
Yeah, I think it's going to go. If this does all go through and everything like that, and we've talked about this previously. But I think it will go more down the vendor central route. So I think that third-party suppliers will have to supply Amazon on consignment and send the goods in. So it's no different to what you're really doing at the moment, but you're supplying it almost on consignment, which is on like a sale or return basis. And Amazon then will sell, I don't think there'll be any buy box or anything like that externally that that the customer will be able to see.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think it'll all be done.
It's similar to when they what do they do? Like buy it off you, ship it to Europe or something. I don't know. Was that Europe?
Yeah, I think it could come down to that. Could come down to competing. Us competing to give Amazon the best offer. Yeah. So, but it'll all be done back end, and what the customer will see is just Amazon selling. That's what the customer will see. So that's the way I think if it happens, that's the way I think it's going to go. I think that Amazon would be mad to split the website, as in Amazon and third-party sellers. I don't think they'll do that. I think they would. I think Jeff would rather take a one-way ticket to the moon than do that, because I think that would just be the biggest opportunity. Imagine if they did that. that would be the biggest opportunity for the competitors to take them down at that stage, or take a massive chunk out of their business, because they'd have to rebuild trust. There are still, I feel like I'm really shouty and ranty tonight, but I feel like I'm really passionate about it tonight. There is still a really high percentage of people out there that don't even know that they're buying from third-party sellers. They still think they're buying from Amazon. So the fact that they'd have to take that into account as well and then put it on another site, I think that they would lose a massive amount of business.
Well, I still get messages now like that. I remember it wasn't that long ago. I kind of said, I basically explained like, I'm not like Amazon, and it's, a third party. And I explained it a little bit, so because I couldn't fulfill what they were asking because it's an FBA and I can't just send, And they were like, and I basically said, you probably bought, that was it. You bought off another seller. It wasn't me. And they were like, what do you mean? I bought off Amazon. I was like, yeah, but there's multiple people on the buy box. And then I broke down the buy box and I was like, this is how it works. There's many sellers, it rotates. And she basically said, that sounds really dodgy. And I was like, what do you mean? It's on Amazon's website. Like, they're in control of it all. Like, what do you think I'm doing? Like hacking into the website and like making my account like number one.
How can that be dodgy? But yeah, I think we're all guilty of that sometimes. Someone asked me today, I went to a doctor's appointment, and the nurse asked me today, what I did for a living, and I explained, and they look at you like you're a bit crazy kind of thing, a bit like, that's the thing, really? And
I don't get why people think reselling stuff, like every shop, like Co-op, Asda, Sainsbury's, they basically buy it from somewhere and sell it. I like everywhere you buy something ever is I'm like, I don't know, it just sounds bizarre to me. Like you go to a restaurant, they're buying it, they're making it, and they're selling it for more. Like,
this is true. This is very,
but
very
anyway.
True. No, I get it. Daniel says there's a clear split in the website with Amazon Handmade. Amazon Handmade, for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, that is their attempt to combat Etsy, because Etsy is the fastest growing marketplace there is at the moment. It's just absolutely exploding, Etsy. And Amazon doesn't like, competitors in that respect. They don't want people getting a competitive edge over them. So that's the reason why they've introduced Handmade. Peter says, we love opinionated Matt. Nat, don't tell me that. I can't talk tonight either. Be putting more of my opinions across. Every shop is a reseller, but people just see them as proper jobs. Ridiculous. Absolutely. It is.
And also it's the same with the people, when you go somewhere and you ask for something, it's like, there's like middlemen everywhere. It's not, even if it's like I've worked for telecom companies, like 500, 600 people strong. They're just reselling phone contracts. It's literally just in like everything.
Mm-hmm.
People are just trying to get their sliver.
It's arbitrage, isn't it?
It's just like I find something and I'm going to try to package it to make it look better, or potentially, or just leave it as it is and sell it on.
There is no more basic business transaction or oldest business transaction in the world, and I know some people might be thinking of another naughty one, but it is the essence of business 101. You buy something lower and you sell it for more. That's what arbitrage is, essentially. So, whatever way you look at it, whatever bow it's got on it, you dress it up whatever way you want. It's arbitrage, whatever way you look at it, for sure. I want to go back and answer a few questions because I've missed a couple. Sean says, UPS rang me earlier, so I don't have to collect other people's boxes after I complain. One driver hates my company, LOL. Well, we know we have to keep the UPS drivers sweet now, especially obviously from a logistics point of view, because logistics, potentially is going to get a bit difficult, a bit dicey over Q4, and we'll come on and talk about that in a moment. Philip says, in response to Emma's comments about, competition and, Amazon just, being king of the hill, kind of, said that I think it might stagnate for sellers, Emma. It's becoming harder and harder in terms of time to meet the requirements. I think what Philip's referring to is somebody reducing the deliveries down and things like that. Good evening, Peter. Callum says, I've been looking across a lot of ASINs this week and comparing the current buy box prices to this time last year, prices are much lower this year. I know we see a lot of tanking pre-Q4, but this year it seems a lot more people are following the buy box down because of restock limits. I think potentially this time of year, we're compounding a little bit the effects of the summer, slower sales. So I think, before we really do start to go in that Q4 period, I personally think, I don't know if you agree, Luke, and anyone else watching, I think between now and possibly in about a month's time is some of the worst price tanking you'll see all year, in terms of people thinking it's going to be Q4, it's going to be amazing, I can buy whatever I want, I can sell whatever I want, not taking into account restock limits and things like that. So always before Q4, I always sort of say it's always darkest before the dawn, and that's well worth remembering. And as I talked about in my Q4 prep episode, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I went through and showed some really good examples of why, if you are price tanking during this period of time, then, you really need to reconsider that, because obviously prices do recover a lot quicker during this period of time. But I do get what you're saying. But in terms of prices being overall lower this year, we also got to remember that there was we were still in a period of maybe lockdown last year. So people were maybe not out and about as much, and they were shopping online, and therefore, there was maybe a little bit less people going out and doing RA and in competition, that type of thing.
I think like last September was like when we in Lithuania had another lockdown. So pretty much most places, most countries, it was roughly the same time, But the only thing I'm actually not worried about, but, interested to sort of take note, is that the prices for most products are higher this year, rather than worrying about the buy box, because if the prices go up, then that's actually the thing you need to kind of work, because you don't know what the price will be. Ultimately, all you can sort of do is predict, but you can see what the price is now. And I don't think there's anything that I'm buying that's the same price as it was when I bought it for last Q4, because I buy pretty much the same stuff. Like 75, 80% of the stuff will be the same. And then any new things that I kind of come across. So I can see all the old prices and stuff. And it's like anything, if I buy something for £6, now it's probably $6.39. And it's nothing crazy, but it's more. And I think I have the max I've seen is like I bought something for last year, like $11.50, and it's now like $13.90. And I'm like, well, but and it does go as low as 5p, but it's still money that's going up. And it's not on literally every product that I sell, but it's on like a lot of Q4 based products from a wholesaler, even from a wholesaler or whatever, and they're all a little bit more. So that's the thing I'm actually trying to more think of, to see if it's too, because I'm bearing that in mind, and then also checking the price for last year as a ballpark figure. I've got to, it's hard to guess, I guess, but yeah, you see what I'm saying.
I do. Prices are going up this year. It's as simple as that. And at some point, all of you, everybody watching, all of us will have to make a decision. And I feel that this will only be for a really short period of time in Q4, where prices have gone up, cost of goods has gone up. The public know that cost of goods is going up. Everybody knows, it's in the news. There's not a day that goes by you're not hearing about supply issues, and that's impacting on cost of goods and things like that whatsoever. So there will come a point in everybody's Q4 when you will look at your reprices, hopefully Profit Protector Pro, and you'll be looking at them and you'll be saying, right, do I want to lower my prices and make more margin, lower my price and make less margin, or sell for the same and make less margin because my cost of goods have gone up? Or do I want to hold out, and do I want to see if the prices go up a bit later on, and I want to make exactly the same and put my prices up to reflect that? So do you see what I'm saying? I got there in a backwards way, but everyone's going to have to make that decision this year.
Because I just thought Well, worst case, I'll just sell it for, even if it's more expensive, I'll sell it for the same price. I'll make less money, but I'll just sell double the amount. Because if I was thinking, maybe not double the amount, it's just an example, but I'll sell overall more, and I'll still make more profit than I did last year, potentially. Well, what's going to happen first? But the sales would have been a lot more. It wouldn't be double the sales for the double profit. It might be double sales for an extra 40% or 50 or whatever, so I think, well, I always sort of run over some scenarios. Can I do that? Would I be happy with that? And so it's like an option. And I'm like, yeah, that's make an extra 30 grand, but I have to do double. And it's like, well, or I have to do the extra whatever of sales. Like, can I do it? Yeah, I should be. And I kind of work out some options. And then I'm like, okay, so like I said, as the picture reveals itself, as we get into October and I start to see what's going on, then when we start to see some pickup in sales, even if it's not crazy, just, like some action, I'm like, okay, just being aware of like the footprint, like the, like how many people are like going, and then the prices, so all of that are kind of, and then I'll kind of tweak the different options I've got, depending on what situation is then. But that's not available for everyone. It's like, if you've got limited capital, well, you might not be able to double your sales because your cash flow is be gone, because maybe you've got a 2-week disbursement limit and all these different things that you could add. So then maybe that's not something you can do, or maybe you can do it a bit, but it won't be enough to make the scenario play out properly. Or so you have to kind of quantify that a bit yourself and decide what best course of action would be, I guess.
Absolutely. And I know that that's something that you always look at logically. So take the time, guys, don't panic. Q4 in essence is quite a long period of time for you to make the decisions, unless Amazon puts something in place or whatever, you have got time to make logical decisions. There's no doubt about that. Right, I'm going to come on and we're going to talk about Luke's ambitious Q4 selling targets in a minute. But you guys are like chatting away on comments tonight. So I just want to go through and just make sure that we haven't missed anything. Where were we? Emma said, talking about merchant fulfilled, sellers are being squeezed from time to time, from time to dispatch merchant fulfilled orders. So inventory limits are definitely making it harder for sellers, especially new ones. I completely agree with that. Age sellers can adapt a little bit to the changes. Completely agree with that. I think I've talked about quite a bit, and I think, most people kind of agree that if you do have more fulfillment options this year yourself as a seller, if you are able to do it. And I know that's difficult for some people, because most people would have entered this business at some time with the promise of, hey, guess what? This is FBA. You don't need to dispatch stock. You don't need to hold stock. Amazon will do it all for you. And I know that you all would have been sold that dream at some time or another. So it's going to be really difficult to backtrack that. But I do think people that do have self-fulfillment options this year, especially to do with the declaration of conformity with toys, potentially, if there was going to be any restrictions, which we're not seeing at the moment. But yeah, absolutely. I do think diversity is going to be key there. I am feeling much better. Thank you, Luke, for asking. Peter says, will Amazon ever compete with Etsy's vintage items offerings? Do you mean like upcycling and, things like that? And possibly, I think it's an area that they'd like to get into, because I think that's an area that's very on vogue at the moment. But if they can get in anywhere, they will. That's certainly the way I see Amazon.
It'd be interesting actually to see what the new CEO of Amazon, their view is, because now that it's not Jeff, the direction can change. Doesn't mean you could get like voted out or whatever they can do in those board meetings, but like I'm sure they would give some. Isn't it called? What's that thing called? If they do it in business, vision. I don't know. I forget the words now because I kind of did it so long ago. You have to set out
your vision.
Maybe. No, yeah. There's like
your roadmap.
It's kind of like basically it's that. It's like like.
I know what you mean. There is a word for it, and I can't remember the word.
I'm annoyed that I can't remember it now because I studied business for like literally 8 years or something stupid. So I'm like, but I haven't used it for like a gazillion years anyway. So
No, I know what you mean, and someone.
But there might not be anything because sometimes they don't really disclose a lot because they don't want to give it. But you know, there might be some hints of the direction more than anything.
Their plans for the future. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, that's the one. Perfect.
Yeah. Philip makes the perfect mission statement. Someone just said.
So I think, you know, there's got to be definitely for investors and shareholders, they need that information so that they can have confidence in the future of the project. Even as
the direction.
Yeah, they have to have some like
plan. You know? Philip's absolutely right. And so for anybody, when Sean was talking about how UPS drivers hate him, I know this from personal experience, obviously running a prep center and everything, you know, having 250 boxes a day, you know, sending out. They do get a little bit shirty, but Phil says, always reward your UPS driver. I do a bottle of whiskey and 50 quid each year for the drivers. And for the managers in around a dozen stores, I do flour, chocolate, booze, and a Christmas card from me and the family. It works wonders for pickup and RA. Absolutely, it does. And do you know what's really interesting? My last job before I became full-time self-employed or full-time running my own business was I used to work for recruitment, and we used to do like present drops.
I know that. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and it was amazing. We used to do morning ones where we drop off like croissants and orange juice, you know, breakfast for people. We do later on with donuts or whatever. And you know what? It's amazing how well that stuff works. And you think, God, it's so basic. And you would think, no, I know exactly.
You wouldn't get me.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you can't buy me with these bloody things. I would be like, but I know people do love, like, I used to notice that when I always noticed like the recruitment woman, even if I work for the like company, I'd always notice them and I'd spot what they're doing. And I was like, you haven't been here for like 8 months. What are you doing? Just coming in and jumping with
a bag of Tesco croissants. Yeah. But do you know what I always think with them? How they would get me is by, if they dropped like some Tesco donuts off, I would say something like, oh, do you know what? I really love those Krispy Kreme ones. And if they came back with Krispy Kreme ones, I'd be like, right, you're getting my next call. That's how I would sort of do it. Maybe that's just me. Johnny says you have to individually look at every price. Prices are lower because the minimum order quantities. If you check what products are selling as for FBA, it's actually pretty good right now. And I know that across the board, that's what a lot of people are talking about. We don't sell traditional arbitrage anymore. So I can't really comment on that. But I know you've said that as well, Luke, that prices are 10%.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I expected. Because of the restock limits and the minimum order quantities that was there, like people had to basically just accept that. Well, they had to basically just crash the price in some way, shape, or form because it would just sit there for literally while it would expire or just like gather so much dust, it would just disintegrate or something. It'd just be there so long. But now, like, and I did think, well, Q4, if there's restock limits, think about the turnover and the revenue of the business of Amazon. It's going to be like terrible because like if no one can send any stock in to sell, so I was like, so you got to add that into the mix, and like you got to, and obviously then over time I started to notice the sellers was coming down, and then that meant that also people might be scared to go back into them because they've now got a bad experience, which is a nice thing it's a good thing to know. People don't want to, and they might be like, oh, I'm not going to bother with that one anymore because it was crap for so long or whatever. So I'm like, okay, that's good for me then. Less sellers for me, and so like, the price will hold a little bit more steady for longer because there's less competition, or people go in lighter because they're a little bit scared or they don't want all their restock limit tied up in it. And then obviously we creep into Q4, and I was like, right, I'm expecting my restock limit to go up and up and up, and it's got now I think it's like 30,000 or something, and it's got every week it's going up like $5,000. I mean, I don't know where the top is. I reckon 50. I reckon they'll let me send 50 in at some point.
I've got to be honest, I actually thought Amazon was doing a little bit of playing silly beggars with the restock limits. Up until about 6 weeks ago, I thought that Amazon was going to stitch everyone up.
They still could do it. It's not, it could be the end of this month.
They don't. But I thought that they were going to deliver a big slash in restock limits. Which they haven't, which I'm really surprised about. They're just growing and growing and growing. Not to say it couldn't still happen, but I I'm happy to admit when I was wrong, and I was definitely one of the people that was saying, don't get too comfortable, guys. I think Amazon are going to cut them again. Oh, he's disappeared. You getting the dog?
Carla keeps snoring, and I don't think you can hear it, but it's really putting me off.
This is a regular occurrence. If you are an ESA member, you know about all Luke's dogs snoring and the occasional screaming as well. But we won't go into that. But yeah, I'm happy to, and I think my opinion's definitely been changed on that now. I'd be surprised now if they did do it. So yeah, it's one of those scenarios. I'm really pleased that I was wrong, or appear to have been wrong so far on that, because I thought it was going to be a massive problem for people during Q4.
I just think they knew that most of their profit. Well, I don't actually know how much profit they generate from and turnover from Q4, but I guess it's a hell of a lot. And I was thinking, well, that's probably why they implemented what they did, because last year lots of new sellers jumped in. Everyone was sending tons of stock in. Stuff started to slow down because lockdown ended and all that, and they didn't see basically the future projections of the stock and the turnover just wouldn't align, I guess, for Q4. And they would have basically, it would just be like there'd be a massive catastrophe basically in terms of like everything. And so they had to action that in advance, because I guess 3 months of, well, doing, 3 months of, or even 6 months of restock limits is probably, and yes, overall there might be some sales dip for them, but they can make it like 10 times more over the Q4 period. I just, that one thing, if everyone was like if my restock limit was like 10,000 or 8, I think one time it was 7,000 or something. It's now 30. It's like, if that was that case, my sales, well, I don't know what I'd do, but they would know where it could be half. Well, it could be half of what I wanted to do, which could be the same as last year, for example. And it's like, and that's just one seller. Imagine all the sellers, and you add all up, and I don't know. I just thought it, and then imagine like the PR behind it, like if Amazon's out of stock and everything. It would just look like maybe next year, then no one would go. Everyone would be put off. It's just like, I don't know. That's how
right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I don't think they absolutely, I think, they absolutely cannot take the risk of now, after the pandemic, being the knight in shining armor. I don't think they can risk that new audience that have come on board during the pandemic. I don't think they can risk losing them for their future growth.
It's like if you say, most people, you say, where do you buy Christmas presents from? Most people say, younger people say Amazon, but if they ended up not doing it for some reason because of, they didn't have any one year, then people might question the next year. I don't know. It's something psychology, isn't it, of whatever it is.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Johnny said, really important not to ignore FBM. That was relating to his previous comments on pricing. Sam said, obviously eBay is the main place for selling used open box item, but Amazon does also have the option to sell used. Do you find this to be a good opportunity? I don't personally. I don't think I've ever sold one item used on Amazon.
I only sold used when I started Amazon.
Did you?
Yeah, I told you before.
Conversation, I know. Yeah,
it was like second-hand Nintendo DSs. I was like buying them off of Facebook. This is a quick story. Facebook Marketplace, and then I was cleaning them up, literally getting wet wipes and like cleaning up, splitting it all, bubble wrapping like a controller, and like you can make some crazy profit. You could like 4x your money, but then you get an authenticity like issue on a used product, and even if it's not used, you've defaulted it as a used product, and it's like, how do you get like how do you prove it? How would you give that? So you have to get an invoice that says it's used? I didn't.
I've never sold used. I don't get inauthentic claims on used products. Sorry, you can probably get an inauthentic claim, but I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone out there?
Why couldn't you get
indemnified you for that?
I don't know. This was years ago anyway. It was like 5 years ago. But I just found that, well, most people buy used from like eBay, like a second car boot, and they haven't got any like proof that it's.
But then that's them selling that as new. You should sell it as used in that scenario.
But then what if someone says like, because you have, but then it's like a grey area. If someone goes, it's not very good, it's poor, and they're like, the condition, you get
you rate it.
Like, how would it? It's kind of like a bit of a messy area. I mean, it is. There is but then the only thing I do think is like, what was that Music Magpie? They sold like a gazillion million used things on there, so like they obviously have it sussed. I don't know if they're there anymore. Are they? I used to remember Music Magpie used to be on everything.
Yeah, they're still number one, I think.
And they've got a million. Like the amount of feedback they got is just like through the roof, and the amount of sales they do. So I mean, not that I wouldn't suggest to do it, but I guess anything's possible because people are doing it.
I wanted to go back and because I missed John's question earlier, he said the big problem at the moment is I'm finding sourcing online. I have all the tools and all the experience to find the products, but they just are not available. Most suppliers are limiting quantities, which is a pain. Well, I do actually think that this is going to get better towards the end of the month, because if you go on most stock websites and wholesalers and things like that, I think between the end of the month and the first couple of weeks of October, I think there's going to be a really good opportunity for the big supermarkets, the big resellers, big shops, wholesalers, and I think that's when they are expecting the big bulk of their stock. There's the story in the news about John Lewis is sending out cargo ships in order to bring their stock, their expected Christmas stock in, because presumably Christmas is the time when they're going to sell those items, best as possible. So I think we will see supply become better before it goes worse again. So I would say big tip from me, and I know someone just said if it's first Q4, any tips? I actually think some of the best sourcing opportunities are going to come after the end of September and the first part of October, and possibly going into about the second or third week of October. And I think those are going to be the best sourcing opportunities, because I think as soon as the stock lands, I think the supermarkets, I think the retailers, they might panic a little bit because they already should have started selling this stock by now. So I think you might see some big sales, you might see some discounts, but more than anything else, it will be, supply will be, demand will be fueling the supply naturally. So I think that whatever way you look at it, that will be a good time to pick stuff up and then flip it a bit later on, once they go out of stock, because I think everyone's going to be focused on buying their goods a lot earlier this year. That's my 2 cents anyway. There's been loads of questions tonight, guys. So well done. Normally everyone's like really, really quiet, but there's loads of questions tonight. A few questions about, when I said about Amazon stitching people up, obviously that's a phrase. I don't believe that Jeff sits there thinking, or Andy, the new CEO, thinks, right, how can we best upset our sellers this month? I don't think that they can do that. The restock limits were absolutely due to the fact that Amazon grew so much quicker than they can anticipate, and they had to clear out some of the old deadwood. It's as simple as that. When I was talking about stitching up, I just sort of like, it's a phrase as opposed to, and it's a warning that you can never not expect anything from Amazon, that kind of thing. That's the way I see it. Someone says, brilliant live tonight. Oh, we're not finished yet, Peter. We still haven't even got onto our first subject, believe it or not. Well, I think it's going to be our only subject. I just want to answer Renel's question, and then we'll go on and we'll talk a little bit about Luke's ambitious sales targets tonight. So why do people do RA when it's not allowed on Amazon? I see big sellers teaching this technique, and then the new sellers get banned. Well, there's nothing wrong with reselling, Renel. It's completely acceptable. Sellers getting banned generally is due to, a variety of other things when, people get suspended on Amazon. Possibly you might be thinking about drop shipping. That's, although it's not against Amazon terms of service, there's a certain form of drop shipping that is against Amazon terms of service. And I think in terms of new sellers getting suspended and banned and things like that, it really does come down to dozens of reasons. But it's certainly nothing to do with RA. RA is perfectly acceptable on Amazon. You just have to make sure that you're buying from a legitimate source and that you can prove to Amazon that you are buying from that legitimate source. So make sure when you are purchasing RA, especially if you're getting till receipts, that you are taking pictures of the receipts and keeping a record of them, because if Amazon asks you at a later date to prove the authenticity of that product, and you go back to find the receipt, and one, you can't find it, or two, it's faded because till receipts fade, then you'll know that you'll have a record of that purchase and you can prove to Amazon that it's from a legitimate supplier. So there we go. Right. Let's just say, I know. Oh, it was Mark Penn that said it. I never said they want to stitch you up. Amazon want 50% of MF sellers. I wonder, I couldn't see who made that comment. Oh no, when I said about it was about me saying about Amazon stitching us up. It was the phrase that I used. Right, so Luke, let's talk about you. Finally, what everyone came here to say. Everyone came here to see, sorry. So, like we said, you told me, and you've said it yourself publicly, this year you want to try and do £1 million in Q4. And I know that there's been a few comments already about turnover is, vanity and profit is sanity.
Everyone says that to me, and and sometimes they absolutely rip into me, like you basically saying I don't know what I'm talking about because I talk about turnover, and I understand what they're saying. Like I understand the reason they're saying it, but I know, like the way that I see it is that this is how I used to say, if I did 10 grand a month, this is how it started. If I did 10 grand a month in sales, I can pretty much cover my costs and pay myself enough to live. So I ran off turnover, knowing what that turnover would create. And yeah, it might be a little bit above, a little bit below. On average, that's what it. And obviously, as things progress, I just scaled that thought and was like, okay, if it's this, it's going to be this. If it's the and now many times I would go and look, and it could be because I look at things in the bigger picture. I don't look at a month. So if people are like, yeah, but that means you don't know exactly what it is. It's like, and it might be slightly different. Yeah, but on an average, over like a year, I just look at a year as like a day. That's pretty much what I do. Like 1 year is a day. And so month to month, it can slightly change here and there, but I know that overall what it will create. And so I'll say 1 million does this, 2 million. Well, I've never done those, so I don't actually know until I actually get there and can reflect. But there should be economies of scale and can help as well, and like stuff like that. But we have to see. Anyway, carry on.
Absolutely. And I think that's the important thing is I really genuinely do know that Luke, I talk to Luke a lot. We work together on Elite Sellers, and you genuinely do not look at daily sales, do you? I
actually more look at what I'm selling.
Yeah, you look at what you're,
but I don't really care. Like,
you don't care if you have like a bad day.
I actually kind of want to have a 0 day just because I like to have things. I like to experience things to see how, just to get me resilient ultimately. So if I have I'd rather get a 0 day tomorrow than like middle of Q4, and and then I want to see how I react to that. Or maybe it's 3 days of 0 sales. How do I react? And it's like learning process. I'd rather learn now when it's not so important.
And I know that you're putting in your big prep now in terms of, and I think you feel that you can do it. If you're going to give it a shot, this year you can do it. You've spent a huge part of this year outsourcing, taking yourself out of the business more, putting processes in place. So talk us through your thoughts and the mindset when you set this target. Did you just pull 1 million out of the air because you thought, hey, it's
I just thought I kind of just do it. I don't spend too much time thinking about it. It's kind of, and then once I said it, I kind of have to do it. It's like, oh God, I've got to try it. It's like, I'd rather just make up a number and then I've got, go for it. It's like, I think it's because it went from last year. I did half a million in Q4, and I was like, then I started to see this is what I think my best day was 21,000. What I'm curious, 21,500 was like my best day. So if I times that by 30, that's 645 grand a month. So if I can just not even go above that, but I can get that more consistent, because I know that the days before that were like 17,000, 19, like they were around there, but it was only for like and then as just before that, it went from like 12 to 4, it slowly kind of went up, and then it was a day or so later, it was the end of Q4. So like now I just want to replicate that, and well, that would just be in December. And so that's the kind of play I'm doing. 500,000 in December, and then, well, it could be higher, but and then
really nicely this year. We've talked about this before. The dates are as good as they can be in terms of squeezing out those extra 21 grand days or what's.
Yeah, that's the thing. A day here and a day there could be 500,000.
Really
No, not 500,000. It could be under grand. It's like, so I'm just kind of, the way I see it is I get the stock in early with the restock limits going up as well. Not on everything, but I get the stock in early on the products that I know I really want a lot of. And then I'm paying, I call it an insurance premium in my mind. I call it that because like ultimately the stock's not going to sell yet. So my IPI score could go down short term. So like, I'm paying with my points. Like, I don't know why I create these weird things, but the points are my IPI score and like my points will go down short term. And then I'll pay like a bit of a storage fee, which is like my insurance premium. I've got to pay like a bumped up insurance premium of the storage fees. But then I can make more than, I can triple, quadruple all of that back. And when all that fast selling stock sells and it's selling in abundance, my IPI score should, if it goes down, then reverse and go up because everything's going to improve. My sell through rate, my in stock will be decent, and I'm going to be replenishing on top of that. And I'm giving myself that buffer so that I can react to it rather than only having 100. This happens all the time. You have 100 in there, you think, yeah, it's selling 20 at the moment, got 100 in there. You go in and sell 80 in like 8 hours, and you're like, well, you basically just lost, I don't know, on one product. You've lost. If I go and order another 1,000 today, even if I pay for next day delivery, then how many days have you lost? Imagine you've got 100 products like that, or 1,000 products. Like, it's just money just like disappearing into thin air everywhere. You know, you basically almost feels like a failure from that point. So, and as you do more years and more years in this, and you just get more confident, it's like, I want to just prepare. I wouldn't say I'm preparing earlier because I always prepare like it's September, but I'm preparing a little bit heavier on selective lines, and I'm just going to dilute it. So once I've got that stock there, I obviously don't need to replenish that right now. So I'm going to filter through. So start at the more important products and sort of filter through. So I've kind of got like my defense, my army ready for battle. They're not doing anything right now. They're all lined up. They're perfect. They're trained. They're ready. I'm paying them salary to stand on the front line. I'm not actually going to war yet because it's got about 2 weeks until the army comes. But I'm just building that up so that I can then do everything else behind the scenes, and I can prepare and I can train up some new guys. Don't know why I've just come up with this random story about an army, but you know, it's the first thing that popped in my head. Well, and that's how I'm doing it. So I'm just building up that defense, and I'm just getting everything prepared. And obviously, that's then I'm coinciding that with like the restock limits, how is it changing? Then looking at the cash flow, you know, you got to add these little things in. It's like, there's like the army, you got the guy from the treasurer. How much you got left? I need to train some more men. And the guy from the the guy that's going to make the swords and the axes, he's got to, and it's like, I'm input. I'm going to just stop talking now.
No, I actually think and I'm going to come on to cash flow in a minute, because cash flow is really important. And I know Phil brought that up earlier, you know, in the question before, because a lot of people say, yes, we know we can do this, we know you can do this and whatever, but cash flow is going to be, your cash flow is going to have to be so tight in terms of, and so well managed this year, if you really do want to have a good shot at this. But just before we move on to that, what I do want to say is it's a little bit like, I think, you know, if anyone's got a shot of achieving this crazy target, I do think it's you, Luke, because I do think that a good percentage of it comes down to mindset. And what I mean by that is 21 grand day last year, right? It's a bit like when Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile. It's partly about, once something's been achieved, you see so many more people do it afterwards. When Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, like 10 people did it in like a few weeks afterwards or something. And it took years for it to happen, but because they knew it was possible. And I think for yourself, a £21,000 day and seeing what was achievable during those last, 4-5 weeks of Q4, you know what it takes to get to that £21,000 day. So all you need to do is get your ducks in a row.
All I'm going to do is go, what did I sell then? Let's try to sell the same again, or an extra 40%. And what was that out of stock on and underestimated, and then just bang loads of that in advance. And
yeah. Absolutely.
It's not actually that complex, to be honest. Like there isn't a lot. It might sound. I mean, I know I confuse everything because of the way I describe and explain, but it is pretty simple when it just comes down to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark said, love the thought process. He teaches this. If you have days at 45k a day, as an example, you could have a 16.5 million pound business if all the days averaged at that. It's basic maths, and it is. Philip says there's lots of models. I personally stripped out a large amount of turnover this year as I was spinning wheels. Absolutely. And I think what it comes down to is I could be wrong, but you know, it'd be good to hear people's thoughts on this. But I think if you're going to go for the turnover and the smaller profit margin model, you need to outsource. You have to be able to outsource. And if you do not want to outsource, or you struggle to outsource, then what you need to be able to do is pull things back, go for less turnover, work smarter, and go for those higher margins. And there's no right or wrong. It's whatever suits the particular person. That's what it comes down to. Cindy says, sorry, I'm late. I've been making Halloween bundles. I can bet your life Luke is looking up your question.
I just want to see. I actually don't know.
Philip says, Mark, I agree 100%. Want to see Luke's thought process here, valid, spot on. And like I said, I really do think a lot of Luke's process comes down to the fact that what he achieved last year. And this is going to sound like there's no secret sauce, because I really don't think there is. It's what he achieved last year, knowing what he achieved last year and doing more of it.
That's what it's been year after year. You have more cash flow, you have more understanding, you know, how many products sell, you just double up. Like literally all I do most years is go, I'm selling that. I know I was out of stock on 50% of that, just double down on all that and sell the same of the other stuff. And maybe add some new products that I find. And I don't mind, and there will be times that I lose money or I break even on those, but I have to play the field, and overall the package comes out nice. Like, or the cake comes out nice, but like there might be some bits in there that aren't so great, but overall it's still I need to stop with all these
Absolutely. Sean says, are you still going to do presents and gifts this year, this Q4, and you still only sell? Well, all Luke ever does is sell Terry's chocolate orange in the UK. That's the only thing he sells all year round.
I'm not actually going to sell any Terry's chocolate orange this year, because I was left for like 300 units, and it took me about. I think I've even still got. They're literally those white chocolate. There wasn't even a lot in it, but you sell tons.
I love orange chocolate, but not white orange chocolate. That's just.
I found like a 20,000 only because I have to go through each day, so it's really 21,000 basically, and it was like 1,662 units. So whatever, is that a lot? 1,662 units. I think my average price. I mean, I don't know what that average will come out as.
So your average selling price actually was what, around £13, £14, maybe? No, a bit less. 12 to 13 pounds.
12.50 or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
That also helps for cash flow. Like the cheaper the product, the less cash flow you have. In theory, I like to go cheaper on my products, because you as long as they're good fast sellers, you can turn them over like a gazillion times like this, and if something happens to it, you lose like £1 or like £5. You lose a little bit, not like a toy, like £50. Tie up a lot of capital. Maybe you buy 100 and you're stuck with them. Bad buy. Mm-hmm. But I can go on forever. I just realized.
Let's talk about cash flow, because none of this will be possible without good cash flow management during Q4. Now, first thing, I think it's important to point out to anybody who maybe joined Amazon in the last couple of years that may not be aware of this. Luke, you've got what I call the Amazon Platinum account, which means you get full 100% daily disbursement. That does give you an advantage.
Definitely in the middle of Q4, like November, because
you're not having to wait for your money.
Mid-November is the time you need it, because you're selling like everything in half a second. You can wake up and everything's disappeared out your inventory because it's just sold. And I can go and spend. And what the thing about it is that, let's say you had that £20,000 day, and it's in the middle of November. Let's just say it's there. In a couple of, if let's say that most of that clears on that, like in 24 hours, within the 4 days, I've got whatever the cleared fund is in my bank. I've got 14 grand, I've got 12 grand, whatever it is. and I can go and then spend all that 12 grand on the same stuff. Yeah. And then, but if you're doing, and then you're just compound, and then I might have a 40 grand day and I might get 28 grand. And it's like, but if you've got to wait 2 weeks to see that filter through, like it's cleared and you're getting money still, but it's money from 2 weeks ago. And it's not money from that day's sales, like the most recent day's sales. It's money that you sold. It's money from products you might have sold 2 weeks ago. Is that right?
Yeah, the cycle is 2 weeks.
So you'll see
15 days. Yeah.
So you'll see your balance. Obviously, the money you're getting from those good days, it could be the end of Q4, or it could be far in December, and it's like,
yeah, it's too late. You're done.
It's either too late or it's right on the wire. You got to kind of
because you've got
maybe you've got one shot. Maybe you've got one shot. I could have like 4 or 5 shots because I can probably get that money in and out like 3 times within that 2 weeks. Sometimes, definitely at the fast-paced areas.
Absolutely.
That doesn't help anyone, obviously, but I'm just kind of giving a.
No, and that's the one thing I wanted to point out, that Luke and any seller that has been selling for, I know we worked this out at one time, it's probably about 4 years now that you have to have been selling for more than 4 years to have that type of account. And
I know Thomas Parkinson doesn't have that.
No.
I don't, and he's been selling for a decent amount of time. So I know, I think it's like,
he was probably
it's like 3 years, 8 or 9 months. I think he's been selling for, and he has got.
I reckon it's about 4 years now. You have to have been selling longer than that. And before anybody asks in the comments, you can't apply for it. You don't qualify for it now. It's just something you have to be grandfathered in at the time to get, unfortunately. So boo, if you haven't got it now, you're not going to be able to get it unless Amazon changes anything. And I really don't see Amazon changing anything, because why wouldn't they want your money for for a little bit longer? They get paid more interest, it's more security for them. It is predominantly cut out like money laundering and things like that. I don't know why I said money laundering, like money laundering wasn't like a real thing, but you get what I mean. They're never going to get rid of that as far as I'm concerned. So firstly, Luke does have a slight advantage. Well, I said, do you know what? I don't think it's a slight advantage. I think it's a massive advantage.
It's a massive advantage just for those just for 6 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can make so much from that, and that, and so unfortunately, you're just going to have to take a bit longer to build that cash flow up, or find a way to fill in the cash flow. Because if you, it's hard to say that it's yours until you've actually clicked the button to withdraw. That's the only thing. So in theory, they could suspend your account, and that is now not yours for now. Like, so you can't replace it with something for short term, because it's not anything that's dispersed. You could, because you know it's going to come, but so that's the only kind of like blocking, the mental sort of block that you couldn't. For example, you couldn't go and get a 30 grand loan and go, oh, but I'm due it in 2 weeks. I couldn't, because you haven't actually been dispersed it. And if they suspended your account, you wouldn't actually get it. And so you couldn't then just. So that's the issue, isn't it? It's not easily to kind of like just to sort of swap them over like that.
Again, just to clarify, because I know a couple of comments have come in. Mark Penn showing off. I can disperse more than once a day. That's
instant disbursements if you got.
Absolutely. Anybody that doesn't have the platinum style account, like I like to call it, you guys can still disperse every day. You can still disperse every 24 hours after a certain period of time. But what we're talking about is, our accounts mean that we can disperse every single penny. Amazon is not holding anything back. There's no reserve for our.
And that's from the sales of it could even be sales from today that have been expedited, because someone wanted it super quick. That cleared funds will still be withdrawn from me to tonight, rather than any. So that's, people can still withdraw ultimately, but
So you can withdraw every 24 hours or every 48 hours. It's just Amazon keeps a reserve, and reserve over time will get lower and lower and lower. But newer accounts, and when I say newer, anything that are under 4 years old, you will never be able to disperse 100% of your money every 24 hours. It's just something that Amazon doesn't do anymore. So disbursement, huge advantage. So let's talk about the other cash flow options that you'll use. Presumably Amazon lending. You will be using cash built up, liquid cash, but you do also utilize lending as well. And by the way, this isn't financial advice. Disclaimer alert, Luke and I are not financial advisors. And anything you go and do, please, please, please get the advice of financial advisor or an accountant or something like that. We're just talking about what Luke's going to do in his business.
What, you want me to tell them?
I do.
So what I'm going to do, this is what I do most years. Comes Q4, I'm basically like, I get all my money from I don't have like a lot of it in my overdrafts anyway, and most of it's in stocks and shares and stuff like that. So it's not like I can just liquidate it all and send it into Amazon. I don't do that. But like, I'll just be like, I've got like $7,000 in my overdrafts. I'm like, yeah, send. All that goes into the Amazon business. Like, I'm just basically looking to spend every single penny just for a very short amount of time. So the risk is reduced, even though there's a lot of risk in theory, because I'm putting in money that is kind of not that it's not needed, but that is kind of like stretching a little bit, you know. It's like, rather than just being a bit conservative, but I do it for such a short space. Obviously, I'm getting money. So when we talked about that instant disbursement, that comes at the end of November. That's already rolling in, so I don't really even need to use anything then. Oh, I thought it says Luke's going for a shower, but anyway. So I'm not using it because once that money starts rolling in, like 10 grand, 15 grand a day, 20, I don't need to be using any. I can then actually, in theory, give myself a bit back, like a little bit here and there, or like feed back the other way. But in the beginning of November, I might need to feed in, or the end of October, because I'm still looking to build up before the sales start rolling in. So there's the gap there. You've got to have the stock ready, because if you start doing 200 sales a day or 100 or 50, obviously it starts off slower. You've got to be able to respond to that and have the cash to buy now, but you're not really having the proper sales that are reflecting those purchases yet. So you have to up front try to extend that, and then for a very short amount of time, maybe just from October to November. And then when it starts to fully go off, you should be getting a lot more back. Even if you have a 2-week disbursement, it should still be a lot more than what you were getting like in September. And I then feed myself back after about 4 to 6 weeks. But I'll always say I've got the Capital on tap credit card just for the cash back, because I think I can probably get like, I don't know what I'll be able to get, but I think I can probably push I say a grand. I think like be conservative, 600 quid a month for cash back on that. I don't know until I actually fully blitz it, basically, for this Q4. And then I got an Amex card recently, because basically I prepared my cash flow. I was like, I don't know if I'll need to use it, but I want the options. So like I prepared. So I already had a couple that were like really low limits, and they're a bit crappy anyway. But I wanted the Amex Gold, because for some reason I could never get it for ages, and then I just randomly clicked a couple of buttons the other day, and it popped. Yeah, you got it. So I was like, okay. And I also got one of those Amazon American Express. So you get like 1.5% cash back.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And I probably won't use that unless it's needed. Basically, I'll only really like max those out again, where just for that very short amount of time. So there is people will be like, well, that's a lot of, you're really pushing it there. It's like, I am, but it is such a short amount of time that will be like that I feel it's a justified risk. But that's the thing about every business. It's like you see people doing like 3 million turnover, 10 million, but it doesn't mean they are, but they could. I think they'd obviously be. Well, there's a lot of capital at risk, to get there. Yeah. And so there's definitely that. And it's like something could happen overnight, and it could just be gone. Well, not be gone, but it would be like
you could be out for weeks. You
have to like liquidate the stock. You got to do whatever you got to do with it. So people that maybe are just running off like £1,000 that they've compounded over like a year, and they got like 10 grand, and like. That might be a better thing for that person to do cash flow. Like, as in, they don't. Maybe you put in 1 or 2 grand yourself, and you play it like that. And it's not about. But you're playing with such a small amount of money that you've created from like 1,000 that you might make another 10 grand, and that actually is like doubling your money, or what it's a lot. Like that's great in itself, because that situation. That is good for that person, where others have got obviously a lot more risk to do a lot more. Even if it's not like loans and stuff, it's still money that's been generated within the business over time, which is then that retained earnings that's got to that position. So there's lots of different things you can do, but ultimately it's down to like how much risk you want to attribute to that action. And that then comes down to the confidence of yourself and the strategy. So like the reason I do the reason I'm doing all of this that I'm doing is because I have so much confidence in it, is that I've done it for so many years. I literally just improve on my previous years. I tweak a bit, I do this and that, and I might lose some money on this, that, and the other, but overall, it still pushes in the right direction. Like reflecting on last year, it still plays the same. It still plays the same. Slight changes, and I'm that confident in it, and that I then add. But because I adopt this very like central, it's just sell loads of something. If you've got £1 billion, you're making a penny. You got £1 billion, you're selling something, you're buying something for 10 quid, making a penny. You're still making tons of money. It's it's just doing a lot of that. Obviously, hopefully, I'm making more than a penny. But and yeah, did I? I'm just trying to think. Yeah. Did I actually cover everything there? But ultimately, with the cash flow, that is what I'm doing. But because I fully trust in what I'm doing and the way that I'm doing it, and I've got experience and I believe in myself.
And evidence. You've got all the data.
Yeah, I've got data. All I do is review it and I just improve on it. And it's kind of, and that took time. So a couple of years ago, I might have only had £5,000 on the credit card. I'm like, oh, look, I've got £5,000 on the credit card. Like, let's go. We're going to do this. And that would have been a lot. And then the year after, I'd maybe it was up to £10,000. And I was like, oh, and I had £3,000 in my own money. Yeah, let's do that. And there is no rush as such, but then you start getting to the point where you start to look at these numbers as kind of like, you look at £20,000, it's kind of like £20. You can basically have to disconnect from. You have to disconnect.
I will say that's the only thing. One of the disadvantages about doing Amazon FBA.
Oh yeah, because I told you something today, didn't I? On Skype. No, not with Amazon, but on
Skype. Judgment on money.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I think, because when you're spending £5,000 a day, and then all of a sudden you come to buy a new car, and you're like, "Yeah, I can buy an £80,000 car. It's nothing. I spent that last month on FBA." But actually, no, it's different money, obviously. But I think the thing to say in conclusion, obviously, to Luke's big plans this year, is you're almost at this perfect storm now within your business, because you've got the experience. And I want to make this really clear for anybody that is coming into your first Q4. Luke, this is Q4 number 6, is it?
I think my very first one was my first month.
Yeah.
So I didn't do. I think I did one. This is it. I did £1,200 sales, and I thought that's how much I make in a month. That's how much I got paid. I actually got paid less than that, by like £20. But that's how much. And I was like, in my first month, in December, and even though that wasn't profit, of course, but like I just matched that amount that I sold as being that's what I get paid. And then from that, and that was my first Q4, which gave me that luckily it was December. If I did it in January, who knows where I'd be now, because it wouldn't, I wouldn't have seen the same. But yeah, so this would be my fifth one.
Yeah, fifth proper one. And the thing is, like I said, it's this perfect storm for Luke. He's been doing it for 6 years. So this is not something that you are likely to achieve in your first Q4 unless you have a unlimited budget, which is not realistic. And I wouldn't recommend, even if you did have an unlimited budget, of piling it all in, because you have to understand the data. You have to know when the sales are going to peak, when they're going to, when you can have the right amount of stock in at the right amount of time for the right amount of sales, and all these different types of things. So in conclusion, he's got the experience to do it. He did it. And especially from last year, which was your first £1 million year, you got the data. So all he's going to do is work out in terms of what he did last year, spread it over, manage that cash flow, and be able to look at his combined experience, cash flow management, and then also the confidence in knowing that what he's already achieved, and the fact that he's got hardcore data. And we talk about this a lot in Elite Sellers Academy. So anyone that's an Elite Sellers Academy member hopefully will comment and confirm this. Luke is not licking his finger and sticking it in the air and saying, which way is this going to? It's a very strategic plan. He knows exactly what is going to sell and when it's going to sell, as much as anybody will know what is going to sell and when it's going to sell, purely because he's already done it. And that's already part of his strategy. So he already has a certain amount of data. And yeah, you're the first one to admit the past doesn't guarantee the future.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. Like I'm sure there's going to be a bad Q4 at some point. Like, because, you have 10 years, like the more Q4s you have, you're bound to, there's not going to always be amazing, like double yourselves from last year forever. What, I'm going to do 100 million in however many years that would be. It's like, there's going to be some, I don't know, maybe I just don't want to do it anymore or something. It could happen, but it's like, I do understand. So I am like ready for like, that potential, I guess, even though I'd be demoralized, I guess, because like,
just don't come back in January.
I have had one Q4 that was stagnant.
Yeah.
And I remember the feeling of that stagnancy, basically not improving my previous Q4, because I didn't really have a proper strategy, I guess. Just kind of went into the next one starting again. And I found that was like knowing what the potential is each year that you do it, you realize it's the greater potential, the what you can do just yourself. It's this random person in his bedroom or whatever is like far greater than what you think. And then next year it's greater than what you thought before, and it keeps going and going. And the worst feeling is when you don't actually improve, but it does then make you realize that I'm going to do my best not to have that feeling again. I always want to be pushing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've motivated and inspired a lot of people tonight. And do you know what? I know we had a joke at the start about the clickbaity kind of title, but I absolutely guarantee anyone that's watching this or anyone that's watching the replay in the future that might be tempted to give me a thumbs down because they think it's a very, clickbaity title, is because I know what I know about Luke. I wouldn't put that sort of title if I didn't believe that Luke couldn't achieve that, or if I didn't think Luke didn't think that he could achieve that. Because
ultimately, I don't know until it happens.
Of course, absolutely.
But
I know
I'm just going to basically put in the work to what I think it requires to get it, and if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like
I also know you'll be the first person to come on here, and if it doesn't happen, and say it didn't happen. And this is the reason why it didn't happen, or it didn't.
It might be that as you double, because you can't keep doubling forever. I just mentioned it. At some point, double. It will be half. It won't be double. It will be 50%, and then it could be 40. Not, but at some. I don't know when that point might be. I don't know what things I'll have to change to stop that, and so we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will be following Luke's journey all throughout Q4, and he'll definitely be coming on a few more times. But just before we go, I really quickly want to touch on the EFN, because I know Callum did ask me previously, and there wasn't loads to talk about, so I don't want you to feel like I'm like rushing through it, because there really isn't loads. Callum said rumors on the forum is about that there's the new EFN, and it has the name EU Remote Fulfillment, ERF. Is that what you say? Yeah. Very similar system as North America, where USA stock can be shipped into Canada and Mexico. All seems very under wraps at the moment, though, as it seems like a few Amazon forum posts have been deleted in the last few days, with them yanking the webinar to launch it at the last minute. Be great to have it live for mid-October. Well, I can 100% confirm, in the words of Lizzo, that the rumors are true, and I've heard it from the horse's mouth. My Amazon insider has confirmed that this is 100% happening. Didn't give a date. It was supposed to go live from the 1st of October, but as Callum quite rightly said, they pulled the webinar at the last minute, which means that they're probably a little bit unsure about some infrastructure, maybe something in the back end hasn't tied up. Maybe it's to do with red tape or whatever. I have also heard that it is going to be that style of system as well, where it's going to be more of an internal move system, because I really can't say that they can do it any other way. But if they can, we're 9 days away from when it was supposed to be launched. I mean, Amazon's pretty amazing, but we haven't had any type of announcement, pre-warning or anything. So I suspect it won't be the 1st of October, because I don't know if you guys remember in the group a few days ago or a week ago, I posted that bit of blurb that I found in the terms of service that said the 1st of October. So I don't think it's going to be the 1st of October, but I do believe we will see the return of EFN fulfillment this Q4. When? I don't know, but I believe it's going to happen this Q4. And if it does, that's going to be massive. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know what the fees are going to be like. But the fact that there will be some sort of what we imagine plausible option to sell back into the EU again is going to be welcome news to everyone for sure.
And I remember back in the day, I stopped selling EFN way before. Not that, I mean, I'll give it a punt, I guess, if it's there. But
what you would? Oh, so if they do it, will you switch EFN on then?
Yeah, I'll always have. Did I turn it off?
No, you turned it off.
I don't know. I'll see. I have to see if my products would even like sell. Like I have to just look into it a bit. But I don't know.
Absolutely. Maybe. But yes, I think it's coming. I think it's going to happen. And I don't know what it's going to be. And I don't know the dynamics of it. And I completely agree with Callum. They are keeping it so far under wraps at the moment that, it's all been wiped off. I'm going to go and have a look actually in terms of service and see if I can find that paragraph again, because it had a link that took you through, but it was a dead link. It didn't go anywhere. So I'm going to see if there's anything attached to that. And if I find anything, I'll post it in the group, obviously, and let everyone know, because I think it's a big deal for sure. Callum says Terry's chocolate oranges for Europe. Big market there, Luke, for sure. Do you think you'll ever expand into like the dark chocolate orange, or is it just like the milk and the white?
I used to sell the standard one, the white chocolate
one. Philip says, I 100% believe that Luke is going to do it in Q4 without a doubt, and I want to see the results. So, but 100%.
Hey, I might find out actually. Maybe I have to bring my margins, because like I was saying, I'm happy to bring my margins down a bit, because if I can sell double, I don't have to make double profits. I'm happy to take an extra 50% profits on, if it's not that much more work, because I don't do the prep and stuff. But then it might be, so it'd be interesting to see the results. It might be that if I keep taking less and less forever, at some point it's not going to be worth doubling every year and keep squeezing those margins. So it's like, but I don't mind doing it and finding out after, because it's not, as long as you're not losing money, it doesn't mean there's no actual work. You're just buying more of things. So you just, instead of buying 500, you just, well, if you can, you're buying 1,000. It might be a limit, because at some point I can't get enough stock. It could be that as well. Like at some point my barrier is the wholesalers just cannot buy like 10,000, like you can't keep essentially going up and up and up and up 50,000 units, I guess you go to the distributor or money, but you get what I mean. Like
you have to work
through the wholesale route. I would have a ceiling at some point. Yeah. So,
and I think you will as well, because I know that you've got lots of interest financially outside of Amazon about, certain things that you have, things, investment vehicles and things that you enjoy as well. So I do wonder, if you'll get to a certain point on Amazon and you might naturally sort of say, right, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not going to take it any higher at this stage. I'm at my maximum capacity. But again, I do also know, a bit like what Phil was talking about earlier, probably at that stage, you'll be like, right, I'm at 2 million. I'm not going to take it anymore. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to work backwards. And I'm going to see.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, I'm basically going to clean up.
Make more profit? Can I reduce the turnover and make more profit?
So I'm going to can I basically just, all you got to do is go for your most profitable products and go, can I sell more in the year? If I missed any opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then get rid of some of the stuff that you sold maybe a lot of, but didn't really maybe make much money on, and sort of move it around. But I think next year, depending on what happens this year, I think a lot of I think January, I might start to sell. I might actually send in stock for January, because a lot of people sort of have a holiday. So I might play that a little bit. In December, I'll do that, obviously. But I might have, for a lot of next year, I may take more of like not a backseat as such, because it's not like I do everything day to day anyway, but a little bit more like one day a week, like a bit more structured than that, because I kind of do bits all day here and there for different things. So I don't really even know how much time I spend on things, but I would like to have a bit more structure, where it's like, right, 2 days a week, month, all the way up to say end of August. And then I'm, like a little bit more structured like that. just so I can focus on other things. But we'll see. I mean, I have no idea. I haven't really thought about it enough yet, but that's a potential.
Cool. Well, I think we'll call it a day. I said to Luke beforehand. I said, "Oh,
be an hour."
I didn't expect that there was going to be so many comments. Thank you so much tonight. You've really, really, contributed us, lots of great questions, and so we really do appreciate it. Obviously, the more questions and the more comments everybody makes, obviously, it contributes to a wider discussion essentially. So please do keep that up. Now, I can't remember who's on next week. I'm pretty sure I have got someone on next week. It might be Matt, actually. It might be Matt Webley come on and talk about some Q4 related stuff, but I don't think I've told him he's coming on yet. So if you're watching out there, Matt, this is the pre-warning that you're coming on next week. But I can't remember. But we do this every Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Now, I'm going to ask a favor from everyone watching tonight, actually. If you are watching via YouTube or if you're watching via Facebook, then go onto YouTube and do it. If you wouldn't mind giving the video a thumbs up and maybe a comment or something like that. I'm the worst, YouTube person, or I never ask for anything like that.
You're not asking people to subscribe?
No, I never do. Never in a million. I never.
No, as in, if you're asking them to put a thumbs up, why wouldn't you just say?
Well, that's what I was going to say, because if you could do that and if you could subscribe as well, I'd love to be able to,
and then click the little bell notification for live updates for when we go live or something like that, isn't it?
Is that what you're supposed to say?
I don't know, something like that. I didn't say any of this. I literally just go. I basically just turn on the computer and press play, and then whatever comes out.
Knows how to ask for subscribers and likes much better than I do. I think I'm going to get her on at the end of it, because she goes into this full dialogue.
Oh yeah, because the way things are going these days is that everybody's going to have a personal brand built around them.
Yeah,
from a young age, you'll literally have and that will be how everyone will be like little entrepreneurs, from a young age.
Yeah,
everyone will have their own niche.
Absolutely. So please, it really is helpful, and it looks great as well from a vanity point of view. So if you could give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. I'm not really, I am bothered. Give us some thumbs up, and please make sure you subscribe to the channel as well, because that means that the little notification, as Luke quite rightly pointed out at the start of it, means that you get notified doing this. And I really do think, never mind the buy box, especially during Q4, is essential viewing for any Amazon seller for sure. Cindy says, great info as always. Q4, here we come. Philip says, send me some top toy tips. Emma, you owe me this Q4. Brilliant live. Thank you, Peter. Really appreciate it. Sean says, oh, look, it wouldn't have been alive unless Sean.
It's always about his warehouse that he's interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't be alive without warehouse. Oh, by the way, Luke, I don't know if you saw the comment. Mark said he was going off for a shower.
I actually checked. I was like, who's that? But yeah. I kind of.
Was he asking you to get in the shower as well? Was that the offer?
No, that was not the offer.
Give him a call, he says, so you guys can hook up and have a chat for sure. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. Really do appreciate it. I will see you next time, this time next week at 7 o'clock. Luke, we know you're going to smash this target in Q4. Please keep us updated.
Let's get hit by a bus tomorrow. Oh my God. Or maybe I'll fall off the balcony.
Don't, because I need you for ESA on Thursday.
Yeah.
So if it's going to happen, let it happen on a Friday. And then you've got 5 days to get over it, 6 days to get over it. I'm a bit of a taskmaster. Anyway, Luke, honestly, I think you're going to do phenomenally, and I think this has really inspired a lot of people this Q4. So thank you.
I think it's inspired me.
Yeah,
I thought, wow, am I really this passionate? Honestly, I'm weird sometimes. I'm like, am I really this passionate about it? Maybe tomorrow I'm going to get even on it double, because I was the last couple of days I've just been I've been preparing, but I've been not going to. But I'm like, maybe I should just. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to just wake up and go for it. So I think I will. So, maybe I'm going to do 2 million.
I'm glad we've inspired you for sure. Just quickly, Simon's asked this before we go, and it's a really short answer, this one. So I know I've said goodbye about 4 times already. But if you're not spending that much on stock, I'm curious as to why suppliers don't give you credit. Suppliers just don't really hardly give any credit. anymore. That's certainly in my experience.
I
because
think I could have got some with my wholesalers, but they said you have to come down with your ID, and I'm like, I'm not in the country. And I'm like, can't I just send it to you an email, like scanned and everything? But they're like, no, you have to literally come down, and it's because they're old fashioned or whatever. But and so
I think credit can be a slippery slope, especially in this business, in terms of I don't want to go into a full another conversation about it. And there's a difference between the type of credit leveraging that Luke's talking about as opposed to getting into the hole with a supplier. I think that's slightly differently. And I also think that there are so many great credit opportunities. By the way, guys, if anybody has been running their business for more than 6 months and you are a limited company and you are interested in hearing about some capital advance opportunities, please drop me a private message or tag me in the Facebook group, and I will be able to make an introduction to you for some, cool companies that offer that type of scaling opportunities during Q4. So make sure you drop me a message, and I can hook you up on that.
I think my girlfriend just knocked on the door to wonder if I was still on here, and I was like, "Wow, we're finishing anyway now. It's fine." But I was just like,
we are finishing for sure. Everyone's saying go for it, and good luck, Luke. We really appreciate it. Right. See you next week, everyone. Take care.
Yeah. Bye.